Mm. The topic is special needs teachers' capacity in the implementation of competency-based curriculum in primary schools in Kenya.
Yeah.
So this research looks at the capacity the special needs teachers in Kenyan primary schools have towards implementation of competency-based curriculum in lower primary schools because of the abolishment of exclusion and adoption of inclusion policy. Special needs learners,
Gino kawinjo maber, Rose.
because of the abolishment of exclusion and adoption of inclusion policy.
Iwinjo gino in, Rose?
They abolished the CBC on special people.
They abolished. Kaito, they adopted what?
And adoption, abolishment of exclusion and adoption of inclusion policy. Which means that inclusion education, they abolished CBC, but they adopted inclusive education.
How is it? I don't know.
Let's go, we will understand. Inclusion policy, special needs learners are enrolled in mainstream schools and therefore have to be provided with the right and adequate support for their learning to take place.
Let me tell you, just continue.
This study will survey a total of 83 public primary schools in Kapsaret sub-county, Kenya, to determine the level of teacher capacity in the implementation of CBC. The sample will include special needs teachers teaching in those schools, numbering to 69. Data collection was done through use of questionnaire for special needs education, teachers in public primary schools. Data analysis will be performed using descriptive statistics for quantitative data and thematic content analysis for qualitative data. The study found out that SNE teachers had moderate capacities in terms of understanding the CBC curriculum and preparedness in implementing the CBC content in public primary schools in the study area. The enrollment of special needs learners was low.
Rose, gini biro konya kose gini wita?
We go to introduction.
Yeah.
Let's say introduction.
Introduction marama.
It's introduction, that was abstract.
Oh, okay.
So introduction, inclusive education is fundamental to addressing the needs of diverse learners in schools across many world nations. That's according to Thi and Al-Zabub 2014. In earlier times, special needs learners used to learn in special schools that were established, contributing to their discrimination. Over time, renewed calls were coming from the United Nations level to abolish segregation of learners with disabilities and ensure they are included in the mainstream school system. United Nations 2011. One of the global policies supporting inclusion of special needs learners was Education for All.
Making sense.
That is EFA. Declarations made in Jomtien, Thailand in the year 1990, which called upon all countries to universalize provision of basic education. Further, in Salamanca, Spain in June 1994, the World Conference on Special Needs Education reaffirmed the right to education for every child, irrespective of disability, to attend regular schools as a way of promoting inclusive education.
To adwaro competency based curriculum nikech ing'eni competency based curriculum, which means ne nyithindo somo, but ka gise somo to they specialize in an area, don't they?
Yeah.
But this one is just general education. This is general education, Rose.
But let's say in literature review they have talked about competency based curriculum. Okay, Momanyi 2019 indicated that competency-based curriculum, on the other hand, place emphasis on attainment of relevant skills as opposed to academic certificates. The goal of competency-based curriculum is to meet the needs of students more effectively by demanding students' mastery of rigorous content and skills rather than measuring students' learning by the amount of time a student has received instruction. Competency education demands that schools transform from a time-based system to a competency-based system. Competency-based curriculum was introduced in Kenya schools.
No, can you know mowacho? Time system to competency-based system. What is this competency-based system?
Competency-based system.
Eh.
Competency education demands that schools transform from a time-based system to competency-based system.
Are you saying what I'm to give me money? Give me penjola.
So let's see about competency-based system.
Time-based system.
It is
That the
inclusion.
Yes, inclusion.
Inclusion to learners with disability.
In learning alongside their able peers, and learning along their able peers and withdrawn to attend specialized training or lessons into a resource room, like the sign language, braille, orientation and mobility, and those ones.
With different teachers or one teacher?
There could be different teachers, not the same teacher. There could be different teachers. Maybe a teacher is specialized in sign language, another one in braille, another one in orientation and mobility. They could be different. Not one teacher. To competency-based curriculum, kawinje adwa ng'e kaka odhi konyo nyithindo man gi disability mathaga ka.
Competency-based system or competency-based learning.
They praise.
Players praise CBC for meeting needs of persons with disability.
Okay, how?
Let's see.
Adwa ng'eyo gik ma giwacho ma kata an bende ang'eyo manyalo kata bro wacho ni CBC will be important to learners with disabilities in this way. Kaite to kanyo iro. But however, there's a portion of it, moko donj maber monego bed ni ng'iyo mondo akobed gi maber manyalo konyo nyithindo go yo makare. Something like that.
So persons with disabilities have described the competency-based curriculum as progressive, saying it is a reform in the right direction from the ever-competitive system. Christian Blind Mission CBM Global, Kenya Country Representative Edwin Osundwa says
very well, yes.
Says that CBC is good because it not only stops or limit competition for grades, but also emphasizes on nurturing potential, which is key for all learners. He also said that CBC will change the language of PWD since the old education system has to some extent been discriminatory and unsatisfactory in quite a number of areas. Many parents of children with disabilities I have interacted with think CBC is a good thing because it stops competition for grades and emphasizes tapping individual potential.
Don't summarize mare no ber. Don't no ber. To ombor. So masoma ketwa boro summarize. That one is now a very good thing for us.
Special needs education has its pillar, the critical issue of nurturing the learner's potential. The learner should just be able to do something simple out of training, he added. Statistics indicate that at least 10% of Kenyan population has disabilities, while the poverty rate of PWDs is at about
15%.
15.
Obro cheko ginene WHO. Obro ng'iyane. Sawa?
He said the country is gradually making gains in the education system. For instance, the government has invested in teacher training, infrastructure and curriculum to cater for varied needs of each learner, including learners with disability. Osunda also said that education is an instrument of change which should ensure that after transiting from school, all people, including those with disabilities, have a role to play in the society to apply the skills.
That one I agree.
He said the society.
Marane mit kendo yot winjo.
He said the society must be prepared to admit PWDs so that they can also apply their skills gained over their years, especially in school. If you look at the CBC reforms, one key pillar is need to nurture every learner's potential. That means that all learners have potential which has to be tapped into and nurtured by the education system.
Right.
So that is a good philosophy he added.
That is true.
He also called for the need to prepare PWD to transit from the formal education system to the world of work, saying there is still a big gap.
That kendo some kanyo?
He also called for the need to prepare PWD to transit from the formal education system to the world of work, saying there is still a big gap. So he quoted that there is still a big gap in preparing the PWD to transit from the formal education system to the world of work.
That one of learning and expecting to get employed.
Yeah.
To a world whereby they are going to get trained and come up with their own ways of employment.
Yeah.
Okay.
They can be self-employed.
Right.
Because policies and environment they need to practice still have barriers.
Right.
Employers are saying they want skilled people, but do not adjust the environment sometimes to accommodate PWD to apply their skills, he explained. That is the sad scenario around education, but CBC is a good focus because it aims at nurturing the potential of all learners and does not seem to compare only the academic side learners, he added. According to the task force report on curriculum reforms implementation, special need education is an integral part of CBC, especially in view of the mission of nurturing every learner's potential, including the gifted and talented. The task force acknowledged that the SNE subsector has experienced growth over the years, but there are still gaps that need to be addressed for effective implementation of the CBC reforms. They include weak functional assessments, dearth of accurate data on SNE learners.
What accurate?
Death. Is it death?
Death. Matoja.
Or it is death or death?
Onge death kanya thomar.
I don't understand this.
Death.
DEATH.
That is death.
Death of accurate data on SNE.
Death. I don't understand. Could there be another meaning for the word? That word? Death. Death. Could it be having another meaning? Another synonym?
Death of accurate data on death, disappearance.
I know this. I know Edwin Osundwani Anyemba where kabisa.
Or lack of accurate data.
I think so.
Lack of accurate data on SNE learners rationally. Poor transition from primary to secondary school, especially for the deaf, and lack of effective programs for the gifted and talented learners. To this end, the task force recommends that the Ministry of Education enhances the capacity of the National Psychoeducation Assessment Research Center at the Kenya Institute of Special Education. These will be expected to come in handy in assessing all areas of special needs, while also acting as the National Coordination Center for assessment conducted at Education Assessment and Resource Center in the country. On assessment, the CBC Task Force report says that it will be determined by nature and severity of the disability and special needs.
Assessment ma wachokane.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they looked at, the assessment to get that one. Pani wawacho about deployment.
For learners with disability to follow the regular curriculum, NEC will adapt the assessment items while also providing appropriate time during assessment administration for learners with disabilities.
And I want to come up with something new other than gigegi.
Like Amara assessment, we will quote it.
Don't
For those not able to follow regular curriculum, NEC will develop a policy of various types of assessment that document the stage-based abilities and fast-tracking competencies. So we go.
Fast-tracking competencies. Because fast-tracking.
Fast-tracking.
Fast-tracking competencies. Room.
In November last year, Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha called for the establishment of data center for learners with special needs. The CS said there have been challenges obtaining data for special needs and disability in the country, yet it is critical for planning and resource allocation. Magoha has since urged Kenya Institute of Special Education to ensure the envisaged special needs data center for the country is established. I'm aware that there are challenges in regard to special needs and disability data in this country. The ministry will support the establishment of a data center to enhance the availability of accurate and reliable data critical for planning and resource allocation. He said KISE is running the EAC used as a reference point by field officers and interested partners. The center offers assessment and therapy services to children.
The center offers
assessment
yes.
and therapy services to children and revolutionize assessment of children with special needs and disabilities and promote inclusive education practices. The center is the KISE. Yeah.
Giri, what about assessment? Tomano can